Here are one of the most notorious killers in Virginia's history based on the severity of their crimes and the impact they had. The Southside Strangler. Timothy Wilson Spencer, known as the Southside Strangler. The Southside Strangler was a convicted serial killer who terrorized the Richmond, Virginia area during the early 1980s. His crimes became infamous for the brutality of the murders and for being among the first cases in the United States where DNA evidence played a crucial role in identifying and convicting a serial killer. Spencer was born on February 15, 1962 in Richmond, Virginia. He had a troubled upbringing and a history of criminal behavior, including robbery and assault. Spencer had a significant history with law enforcement, and prior to his murders, he had been arrested multiple times for various offenses. However, he had never been convicted of anything serious enough to lead to a long prison sentence. The murders. Between 1984 and 1987, Spencer was linked to a series of brutal sexual assaults and murders of women in the Richmond area. His victims were all women who were sexually assaulted and then strangled, typically in their homes. Here are the details of his known victims. Victim 1, Deborah M. Debbie Dorset. Date of death, July 21, 1984. Dorset was a 28-year-old woman who worked as a bookkeeper. She was found in her apartment, strangled with a pair of her own stockings. The scene suggested a sexual assault had taken place. Forensic evidence from the crime scene, including a semen sample, was collected but did not immediately lead to a suspect. Victim 2, Darlene Eldar Holt. Date of death, March 2, 1985. Holt was a 29-year-old woman who worked at a convenience store. She was found dead in her apartment, also strangled with a stocking. Similar to Dorset's case, there were signs of sexual assault and semen was found at the crime scene. Victim 3, Rita Marie Farrell. Date of death, October 14, 1987. Farrell was a 45-year-old woman who lived in a Richmond suburb. She was also sexually assaulted and strangled with a pair of her own stockings. Again, DNA evidence was collected and the case was linked to the earlier murders. The murders initially went unsolved, but police began to notice a disturbing pattern. All the victims were women, and they were found in similar circumstances. They were sexually assaulted and strangled. The common element in the cases was the method of strangulation, often with a piece of the victim's own clothing, which led investigators to consider the possibility of a serial killer. Despite the investigation, leads were scarce and police were unable to make any significant progress in solving the case. The breakthrough, DNA evidence. By the late 1980s, forensic technology was advancing and DNA profiling was emerging as a tool for solving cold cases. In 1987, police were able to link semen samples taken from the crime scenes of the murders. This breakthrough led to the realization that the murders were committed by the same person. In 1988, after an extensive investigation, police had a major break when a match was made to Timothy Wilson Spencer, a man who had been previously arrested on various charges, including robbery and assault. Spencer's DNA was compared to the semen samples taken from the victims, and it was found to be a match. On April 3, 1990, Timothy Wilson Spencer was convicted of the murders of Deborah Dorset, Darlene Holt, and Rita Farrell. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Spencer spent nearly 4 years on death row before being executed. His execution took place on April 27, 1994, at the Greensville Correctional Center in Jarrett, Virginia. He was the first person in the U.S. to be executed based on DNA evidence.